and welcome to another night of serious conversation. This is Politics Tonight. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Chief of Army Staff confirms intensified efforts to push back insurgents in the northwest and northeast regions. Tonight we shall be discussing Tinubu's economic reform and projections for 2025. And my guest tonight is Ken Okolubo, Public Affairs Analyst, Consultant Communications and Strategy, Office of the President of the Senate. Welcome to the program, everyone. Stay with us. I'll be right back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now let's head straight to a conversation for tonight, which is all about President Tinubu's economic reform and projections for 2025. Joining me now live in our Lagos studio is Ken Okolubo. Okolubo is a political and public affairs analyst, a consultant, communications and strategy, Office of the President of the Senate. Good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us on Politics Tonight, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. In flesh and blood. You've always interviewed me for 2 years plus, and I've never seen you in person, so it's good to see you in person.
It's good to see you.
And what a beautiful studio you have here in Lagos.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's nice to be here.
Very much. So I look at your latest designation. Does this really can authoritatively speak on behalf of the Senate President?
No, the Senate President has a spokesperson, but I can speak to what is happening to the Senate and the Senate President. As his communication and strategy consultants, I can do that, but he also has a spokesperson. Is this interview all going to be all about
let's talk about the economy, because you know economic growth drives much of what happens across the economy. Talk about employment, education, health, and living standards. The president has promised to solve myriads of problems tackling Nigeria. What are the measures?
Well, if you look at it, 2024 was a very difficult year. We can't take that away from what has transpired. It was a year where we saw the budget was predicated on 850 exchange rate, and the exchange rate came as high as almost 1,850. In fact, it got as high as 1,950. And the oil production at a point went below 1,400, but eventually got to 1,800 barrels per day. And when you look at an economy that is basically, dependent on crude oil, it's a monoproduct. We've been talking about diversification, and it's been very difficult to actually have a grasp of that diversification.
Why is that so?
The mining ministry still has a long way to go. I know they're doing a lot. I'm not in the mining ministry, but we also have agriculture, and you also look at the fact that there were a lot of hiccups between the farmer headers crisis. We also had insecurity, and that's bordered a lot on food production. So food security was another challenge in 2024. Once you have food security and you're not importing food, and you are self-sufficient and you can export, you are going to drive down the prices of goods and food. And when you have a situation whereby you are not self-sufficient, you're rather having to open your silos like the federal government did, giving out almost how many metric tons of grains, and even having to buy at a material point in time, and having to also allow import of certain food items, waiving off the duty. That will tell you that 2024 was quite a challenge. But you see, the economic measures that have been put in place by this government, certainly there's light at the end of the tunnel, but the impact has not been felt by the ordinary Nigerians. And that is why you see the president always saying that, look, when you're pregnant, it takes a whole lot of labor.
But Nigerians are saying how
labor pain, but eventually when the baby is born, then there can be a whole lot of relief. Because as it is right now, the pain is quite there, it's quite severe.
Because I've spoken to some economists who say the truth is that positive effects of policies usually become noticeable after 3 years. I mean, surprisingly, my guest last night says 5 years. But the federal...
No, it can take as long as even more than 5 years.
Okay.
If you have a development plan, for example, when you look at the medium-term expenditure framework, it gives you a 2-year plan. It gives you 1 year of looking at where you're coming from and a 2-year plan ahead, and the physical strategy paper. And so basically, you're looking at the working document that you're going to use for the year coming. And you're projecting, you're hoping, you're not exact, it's not exact, these are not the exact figures you might get, because a budget is a policy, is a working document. It's not cast in stone that this is the exact amount you're going to get. You're only just hoping that, from what I can see, this is what I'm going to get. For example, if you look at budget 2025, they're hoping to do more than 2 million barrels of crude a day. We are 1.8 million barrels. They're hoping to sell at $75, which is a Brent crude, which is same as Bonny Light. And you're also hoping at the same time to service your debts with about 15 trillion. And there's a deficit of 13 trillion.
I see all of that. And I
so
think
you see, when you see all of this, you're looking at what are the projections. And the president says, look, we are going to be able to drive inflation to 15%. We are at over 34%. So some will look at it as it's a tall order to drive the inflation from 34% to 15%. But is it workable? It is very workable. It is very doable, because first of all, if you have a budget surplus, if you have a GDP growth where your exports, it's more than your imports, and you have a trade surplus like we have had now, and it continues for 1, 2, 3 quarters, then you are
But don't you think the federal government needs to be more open,
more supply than demand,
open to Nigerians about when exactly they would be feeling the impact of these policies?
Yeah, I think 2025, if you look at what happened in this period, this December period, the price of dollar went down. Why? The Naira firmed up. Why did Naira firm up? Because there was more supply of dollars. Dollars was in excess. You see, when there's supply, when there's the forces of supply outweighs the forces of demand, definitely you are going to stem inflation. And that's exactly maybe what the government is looking at now, having to, shop the prices of, reduce the prices of goods and services by going to production and consumption. By the time you produce more food, for example, which is very key, Benue, Nasarawa, the food basket of Nigeria, people store all this food sometimes, they hoard them because they're looking at the point in time when it becomes more expensive. But when you have them in excess, even when you store, it becomes useless, because by the time it comes in excess, you'll be forced to release those ones you have stored to the market, and that drives the prices of goods. Rice is being purchased at almost 100,000 for 50 kg rice.
So, I asked the question because I've also heard financial experts say Nigeria needs a growth rate of at least 6% for 3 consecutive years to make a significant impact.
But we are a little bit over 3% now on our GDP growth. And if you look at our borrowing for the budget, which is about 13 trillion, it's still within less than 4% of our GDP, which is allowed in economic terms. But you see, how will it reflect depends on how much funds we're going to get outside oil. If we get more money outside crude oil, which is why the president is maybe very particular about these tax reforms, which is another way of also bringing in revenue outside the mono product, which is oil, we will now be able to drive down those prices of those essential services and goods, and we will reduce our recurrent expenditure. Recurrent expenditure is another way of eating up a lot into the budget. Then corruption. People don't look at it. There's a lot of corruption, which this president, I must give to him, has taken headlong. The EFCC has done a very great job in 2024. Over 250 billion recovered by the EFCC. Over $100 and something million recovered by the EFCC. You can now imagine that an anti-corruption agency can give seed money to the credit consumer program of the president, and even the student loan funds. So it's what does it tell you? You are also trying to stop corruption by the time you are giving students money to be able to meet up their needs. Consumer credit, you are also able to give people money who are in short of funds. And when you put money in the pockets of people, you basically reflect the economy.
Because you talked about tax reform bills, let's go there, but that'll be right after this break. Please stay with us, everyone.
There is always more to a story than the scribbled line. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you very much for staying with us. Tonight we're discussing President Tinubu's economic reform and projections for 2025. My guest tonight is Ken Okwolugo, Public Affairs Analyst, Consultant Communications and Strategy Officer of the President of the Senate. Thank you very much for staying with us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Before we went on that break, we're about talking about tax reform bills.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's some sort of resistance from some quarters?
You know, a lot of people have not looked into that tax reform bill. You see, when I heard the Yedele speak about it, I went into the bill itself. Apart from the fact that I happen to be the consultant on communication and strategy to the Senate President, I've been privileged to also discuss it with a few senators. And you see, some that have the concerns, I don't like this north-south dichotomy that people are bringing into the issue. There shouldn't be north and south dichotomy. We're looking at a situation whereby compliance, it's very difficult to get people to comply in terms of tax paying, because there's this average feeling that, look, I'm providing most of the things for myself, the government is not doing well, why should I pay tax? And so our tax culture has been next to less than 50% in terms of performance, or like you can compare to other countries. Now, if you look at the tax bill, you have 4 bills that was submitted. They tend to also just look at VAT, the value-added tax. I don't know why they're looking at value-added tax. They're not looking at the other gains. If you're earning 70,000 and below, or now 70,000 is the minimum wage, so you cannot earn below 70,000 since it's a law. That puts you in the category of a millionaire and below. You are not paying tax. If you're an entrepreneur that is earning 50 million naira and below, you're not paying tax. Now, the important thing is that this tax is not geared towards the poor. The value-added tax itself, which used to be 15% to the federal government, 50% to the states, and 35% to the local government, have been changed in that tax proposal to 55% for the states, 10% for the federal government, and 35% to the local government. Why am I saying this? Now the states are earning more. And I hear some people complain that, look, point of consumption should be where I should pay my tax. If I'm making a call from my village in Obiaroko, I'm making a call from Kaduna or Katsina, or Zamfara, why should I come and pay why should I not earn the value-added tax that comes with that call? Why do I have to pay? Because MTN pays the second highest VAT in Nigeria. I'm just using that as an example. Now, why should I have to credit it to Lagos? Lagos and Rivers have been accused of this tax reform geared towards them. I dare say, if you look at the details of that bill, we'll stand more to lose because of the 60% derivation.
He's open to negotiations.
Oh yeah, because if you look at the Senate, for example, it's been committed to Senator Sani Musa, that's the senator in charge of the finance committee. It has been committed to his committee. It has passed the first, second reading, and third reading. Second reading, it has been committed to his committee, and they're supposed to go on public hearing. Now, why negotiations? Negotiations is public hearing. When people are going, we are deeply in the conversation by what we are having here. When people are talking about it now, you're looking at it from a broader perspective, because some people are being hoodwinked, some people have been gaslighted, they've been made to believe that once this thing goes through, we're not going to make any money for our states anymore. And so some of those governors would have to also sit with the president, because they're members of the National Economic Council. But don't forget that the National Economic Council is an advisory body to the president. He doesn't chair it. It is chaired by the vice president. So he's an executive bill that he brought before the Senate and the House of Rep. The House of Rep has not committed it to their Committee of Finance. It is still within the debate stage. But I believe that with the National Assembly resuming next week, there will be harmonization. And when there is a harmonization, they will now be able to go for that public hearing. Then we can see the nitty-gritty and unearth some of the secrets people think are in the tax bill, which I don't think are secrets in the tax bill, because now it will come to the public for and people can actually debate it, and I agree. All
right, let's talk about inflation, because at the moment, Nigeria's present inflation rate suggests that food commodities was worst hit in 2024. And according to the MBS, over 60% of Nigerians had to skip meals and go to bed hungry, as they could not afford, enough food. What do you think CBN is not doing right?
Well, I think CBN still has a whole lot of work to do on the issue of inflation, because 34% is high. That's the highest we have ever had. And if you look at 34%, it's still the double digits, but it's now going beyond close to 40%, which we never prayed that it would get to. Now, the CBN has increased the monetary, for every MPRO that they've had, there's been an increase. Now they are 27.50. Now, if you put it at 27.50, what the CBN is aiming to do is to drive inflation, because they expect that people will now be more interested when we issue out our bonds. For example, the last $2 billion bonds that was issued was oversubscribed because people are excited at the interest rate. But it's not translated. Monetary-wise, it's made sense in terms of economic sense. But it has not translated, it has not reflected in the pockets of the ordinary Nigerians. They still go to the market and they buy tomatoes, they buy pepper, they buy goats, they buy yam, they buy fruits quite, at an exorbitant rate. Now, what do I say? What I say is, if we leave out the CBN and we're going to, say again, excess production, by the time we encourage, the president talked about mechanized farming, about 2,000 tractors. Now, if those ones are quickly introduced, and I think they might, I might even say if they use the open wallet system that Additional did when he was Minister of Agriculture. Remember, that was sending fertilizer directly to the farmers. The middleman was eliminated. There was almost...
Talking about these tractors, I do apologize. I'm sorry for bumping you. Talking about these tractors, someone said the president these tractors should have been on ground before the president announced it. And it cannot be about promises anymore.
I think the president, it was hope rising. The president wanted to say, look, I feel your pain in terms of the agricultural aspect. These tractors are coming. I see light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think there's anything wrong in him saying it before he does it. The only thing is that they must be implemented on time, because the CNG buses, for example, had a lot of delays. Even though it has started coming, it's still in phases. So people have not felt that impact. And by the time it comes the way the president desires it, then maybe transportation will now be reduced. But, it's a year and a half down the line. Everybody knows that the life of an administration is 2.5 years. Most of the time, because the next 1.5 years is left to politics.
All right.
And so we basically have 1 year for there to be a major impact in the life of this administration, which I believe.
All right. About 2 minutes to go, so let's talk about the budgets, because the Senate Committee on Appropriations that proposed
January 31, yes.
Yes, as a target
the committees are going to start
for the national services submit and potentially pass the budget.
Yes.
I mean, with security, job creation, education, and health being prioritized, how can these translate to economic growth in the country?
Oh, if you look at it, health was given 2.4 trillion, education 3.5 trillion, defense was given 4.09 trillion. I think what the National Assembly is going to do is to thoroughly scrutinize it. Where they need to add, they will add. Where they need to subtract, they will subtract. Basically, to be geared towards the president's vision, because that is why you have found a synergy between this National Assembly and the president. And people keep trying to impugn on the integrity of the National Assembly because of the peace they find to mean that they are rubber stamp. It's not true. They disagree.
You think that's too early?
No, that's far from it. They disagree they disagree, and people don't know that they disagree, but they don't have to come and disagree in the open. They disagree when they understand themselves and they're geared towards one goal, which is to at least alleviate the present sufferings that Nigerians are facing right now.
But if you look at the key economic projections that the 2025 budget framework was based on, how feasible are these benchmarks?
$75. Yeah, Brent crude is $76 now, and Bonny Light is $75. So it's feasible. But where I find worrisome is the 2 million barrels. I don't see how we can consistently keep 2 million barrels.
What are the challenges for you?
Security and theft, oil theft. If you don't nip oil theft, non-state actors have been contracted to do that. While they are doing their best, but I think we must look beyond just non-state actors taking charge of securing our pipelines, beginning to think of what Saudi Arabia is doing, applying technology in actually nipping in the bud. Yes, applying technology, nipping it in the bud. Because you see, when you don't nip theft in the bud, you can't make 2 million barrels. When you don't have security, you can't make 2 million barrels. But the good thing about the Tinubu's administration is that for the first time we're drilling, just like what Trump is saying. We are now open to drilling. Before now, they were not drilling. So by the time you drill, you have more oil wells. And the chances of you maybe aiming at getting 2.4 million barrels will maybe get you to 2 million barrels. But I think that's really a challenge.
All right, so Ken Okologbo, thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. He's a political public affairs analyst, communications strategist, consultant communication and strategy officer of the President of the Senate. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for watching, everyone. It marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at midnight. Get in touch with us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and X at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke WO using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Good night, everyone.
You see destruction is because God is absent. There is no destruction in God. So who started killing from Genesis? Satan. Jesus exposed him. The thief cometh not, but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I am come that you may have life and have it how much? More abundant. I prophesy as your amen is coming like thunder. Whatever is yours, receive it now.
For over 6 decades, the Bank of Industry, BOI, has been driving Nigeria's industrial development through financial and business support services.
Bank of Industry is one organization that has kept their words with the Nigerian businesses.
I have been able to expand my business from catering, event management, into water production.
A single digit that Bank of Industry offers is the only solution to stay afloat.
BOI Impact, now showing Tuesdays, 9:30 p.m. on TVC News.
Keep up with innovative, revealing, and groundbreaking happenings in the world of brands and brand builders in Nigeria and across the globe. Mingle with people and brands that make the cut and the personalities that keep reinventing the trends and traditions in the marketing world. All an exciting one-stop shop for marketing vibes. Marketing Edge on TV. You're always right on time with the right people and movers and shakers of the world of marketing as they share their views and ideas on the business and challenges of advertising, corporate affairs, media strategy, and the unfolding exciting world of digital marketing. Join the trendsetters and key decision makers as they shape opinions and project into the future of the marketing landscape for 30 exhilarating minutes on this channel. Stay ahead, be thrilled to beat, be marketing savvy with Marketing Edge on TV, promoting the bright idea.
The Shared Prosperity Weekly TV series on TVC News. It is through this telecast the viewers get to know what is happening in the prosperity government of His Excellency Senator Hope Uzodinma, the Executive Governor of Imo State. Through this program, all questions agitating the minds of citizens and residents of Imo State are answered in details with documentary evidence. Don't miss it. Keep a date with us every Sunday on TVC News by 9 p.m.
I'm Miriam Lunge. I'm a passionate environment advocate and a published author.
I am the founder of Celebration, a businesswoman, and a fashion icon.
I am a wealth coach and a real estate developer.
I am Amaka Rakwe. I'm a corporate commercial lawyer and an entrepreneur.
Welcome to Warhaka. I am Ramatu Shehu Oyibo, an entrepreneur and a business coach.
I am the voice of an average Muslim woman, I'm a Jabite, and a lawyer.
I am a polymath and a serial entrepreneur.
I am Murayo Afolabi Brown, Managing Director, TVC Entertainment. I'm a media consultant, producer, and broadcaster.
The ladies of your view are made of women from different professions, tribes, cultures, and religion. Join us every Monday to Friday as we share our views on topical and social issues.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to bring it. TVC News, News. First with breaking news.
The maritime sector continues to witness dynamic strides towards development and collaboration. On today's edition of The Shipper, we'll spotlight two key events shaping Nigeria's maritime landscape. First, we'll bring you highlights from Abeokuta, Ogun State, where the Nigerian Shippers Council engaged with the Ogun State government on the Gateway Inland Dry Port project. A major milestone was achieved with the presentation of the Certificate of Compliance from the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, ICRC. Next, we take you to Lagos for the 2024 Annual Seminar and Conference of the Maritime Journalists Association of Nigeria, AMJON. The event brought together industry leaders to deliberate on critical issues impacting port efficiency and the sector's future. And later, stay tuned for the Tidbit segment with Idowu Ogungbemi, bringing you the latest updates in local and international maritime news. Details after this short break.
For more than 5 decades, we have empowered and protected the interests of shippers in the nation's maritime industry. Our focus is to facilitate trade, regulate tariffs and rates, as well as handle shippers' complaints on cargo losses, damage and non-delivery. We offer dispute resolution mechanism for shipping and trade disputes between shippers and service providers. We are Nigerian Shippers Council, Nigeria's fourth economic regulator, your gateway to a thriving maritime sector. Nigerian Shippers Council will meet you at the port of your need.
Welcome back to The Shipper, proudly brought to you by the Nigerian Shippers Council, the nation's port economic regulator. My name is Abike Ido. Our first feature takes us to Abeokuta, the capital of Ogun State, where a significant meeting took place between the Ogun State government and the Nigerian Shippers Council. His Excellency Governor Prince Dapo Abiodun welcomed Akuta Pius, the Executive Secretary and CEO of the Nigerian Shippers Council, along with his management team. The focus of their discussion was on advancing the Gateway Inland Dry Port project, a transformative infrastructure initiative aimed at boosting trade and logistics across the region. This report, compiled by Additional Abiodun, is presented from our studio.
It was a momentous occasion as Akuta Pius, MON, the Executive Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Shippers Council, presented the Certificate of Compliance for the Gateway Inland Dry Port project to the Ogun State Governor, Prince Dapo Abiodun. The certificate was issued by the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, ICRC, for the project's outside business case. The Executive Secretary commended Governor Abiodun for his unwavering commitment to the development of the Gateway Inland Dry Port, which he described as a game changer for the shipping industry. He emphasized that the project will bring shipping services closer to shippers in the hinterlands, significantly reducing the challenges posed by long-distance transportation to the ports in Lagos.
Your Excellency, I must bring to your attention also the issues of technology and automation of these critical infrastructures that we are developing. We will work together with you to see that at the end of the day, when this infrastructure is fully developed and operational, we will work together in terms of automating the processes to reduce human contact, and ensure that the ease of doing business is promoted in Nigeria, in line with the directive of Mr. President in this sector. We are looking at ways in which we can partner with different state governments, not only in terms of developing the inland dry ports, but also vehicle transit parks or areas, which we overall look at the issue of connectivity and movement of cargo across the hinterlands, not only in Nigeria but across Africa, since we are within the times we're living in the African trade, continental free trade agreement area, where we are hoping that goods and services will move across Africa. And what will Nigeria do in terms of supporting trade that will come out from Nigeria to the rest of Africa?
The Executive Secretary also highlighted the importance of incorporating advanced technologies and automation in port operations to enhance efficiency and reduce human traffic at the ports. He noted that Nigerian Shippers Council is not only collaborating with Ogun State on the dry port project, but also on the development of the Vehicle Transit Area, VTA, another critical infrastructure.
Today, it is one thing to set up the ministry. It's another for the ministry to begin to play by the mandate that it is set up in terms of achieving the overall objective of which Mr. President has set up the ministry. Today, we are at the verge of passing a policy, adopting a policy for marine and blue economy in this country, which has never been the case before. That policy has looked at the issues of infrastructure in the sector, which is one of the things and the reasons why we are here today.
He further expressed his gratitude to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for establishing the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, which he described as a pivotal step towards diversifying Nigeria's economy beyond oil. He also thanked the Honorable Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, His Excellency Adegboyega Oyetola, for his steadfast support for the dry port project. On the Council's bill, which seeks to transform Nigerian Shippers Council into the Nigerian Shipping and Port Economic Regulatory Agency, Akuta Pius highlighted that the bill has successfully passed the first and second reading. He called on stakeholders to continue supporting the bill's passage into law, as it would further improve port efficiency and help Nigeria become a regional maritime hub.
It's a major milestone that we have achieved today. There are other milestones ahead that we have to achieve. Like we agreed, we're going to set timelines, and we'll work within the boundaries of those timelines. Good enough, Mr. President has given us a marching order to ensure that we develop this critical transport infrastructure to support trade activities and initiatives, which is a policy of his government. And with that, we are all set, and we have received all the support from the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy. We have received the support of the ICRC, which are other partners in this regard. So the next stages will be meeting together with the Ogun State government, the ICRC, and other stakeholders to see how we can commence the journey.
In response, Governor Prince Dakpo Abiodun thanked the Executive Secretary and his team for the visit and recognized the significant contributions of Nigerian Shippers Council under his leadership. The governor praised President Tinubu for appointing a technocrat like Akuta Pius, noting that Nigeria has made remarkable strides in the maritime sector under his tenure. Governor Abiodun emphasized that the Gateway Inland Dry Port is vital for Ogun State, an industrial hub with numerous manufacturers who will benefit from the port's services. He also stated that the development of the dry port will